Alrighty, guys, we have got our preview here for the San Francisco 49ers. Um, it's our regular stuff here. We're going to do our normal thing. We're going to go through the roster, some futures we like, things like that. And hopefully by the end, we have a better thought process about the 49ers. But we'll start with what happened last year. And again, pretty typical 49ers season. Um, Lots of injuries. They continue to kind of be injury prone, and that hasn't really changed this preseason just yet. Um, but they have such a good base with Kyle Shanahan, the system, everything there, that guys have the ability to step up, step in, and things just kind of keep on ticking. And they did last year a little bit. They finished the regular season 12-5. They get themselves a road playoff win over Philadelphia. Again, in Philadelphia. Um, they go out a bit of a whimper there the next game, um, as they lose to Seattle 41-6 to end their season there. And again, it just finally catches up with you. A better team, the injuries piling up, and things just kind of snowball away negatively early on in that game. And that was kind of it. And that's how the season ends there. So again, a pretty typical season there. You get a playoff win. Again, you're there toward the end, but doesn't quite get over the line. Injuries take hold, and it's always just kind of ending this way right now. And whether that changes this year or not, we'll see. But it's a fascinating team. Again, so a ton of injuries. Mac Jones played 8 games last year, went 5-3 in those games, which is pretty great for a backup quarterback. While Purdy was hurt, um, there just aren't too many teams that can go 12-5 missing their quarterback for half the season. There just aren't. And again, other players too. Nick Bosa missed most of the year. Michael Williams, their first round draft pick last year, missed a ton of time. Kittle missed 6 games. Pearsall missed 8. Warner missed 11. Like, it's just the injuries keep on coming, and the next guy steps up. So that's always a trait you like. That's always what you like here, and it's always nice having that base. At some stage, you just kind of hope they're healthy, though, and they can kind of push through. And the health thing is an issue, again, and the substation thing is funny, and I get a kick out of it when every time you see like a practice clip, it's right there in the background. You get some funny memes out of it. But again, genuinely, it really sucks that this team that has such a high floor is constantly missing really, really good players just for watching sake sometimes, just where you want to see all these players play and you just don't get to. Um, and it really blows. And again, they power through that stuff. 6th in EPA on offense last year. Again, Mac Jones played 8 games. 25th in defensive EPA, which is a worry, and it'll be a worry again this year. We'll see. Again, missed a ton of guys last year. Nick Bosa, Michael Williams, Fred Warner, who's the best linebacker in the league, missed 14 games, so, or 11 games, I think it was. Nick Bosa missed 14. Like, you just don't get those guys on the field, and somewhere it breaks down, and it broke down on the defense a little bit. So hopefully this year we see just better health, though that hasn't started particularly well with Pearsall, but hoping to see better health for the most part, and maybe we can get a deep run out of this football team, because it's in an interesting spot roster-wise. So why don't we go ahead and jump on into it again? Last year, 5th in pass offense, 14th in rush offense, 6th in total offensive BPA, 24th in pass defense, 25th in rush D, and 25th in total defensive EPA against. Not where you want to be defensively, that's for sure. And offensively, it's probably better if, we get a full season of Purdy ahead of Mac Jones, but being top 6 in that case is it's incredible as it is. This roster does lose players. D. Winters is gone. Juwan Jennings in the wide receiver room gone. Kendrick Bourne in the wide receiver room gone. Gross Matos, Bryce Huff, not huge pieces or anything, both gone from the edge room. Jordan Elliott on the interior gone. Spencer Buford, Jason Pinnock gone at safety. Chase Lucas. There's some more in there. It's a pretty long list, but in terms of guys who are going to be big parts of the team, there aren't a ton gone. But the depth, again, on this team is important. So there are some decent depth pieces gone. Again, Juwan Jennings gone. D Winter's gone, though that got upgraded a bit. So the depth pieces, there's a decent amount of it gone, but we're going to work through it and see what we can get here. They added some good players as well. Osa Adigizua, I really like him. We'll talk about him later on. That's a good addition. Mike Evans, a solid addition there. Vidarian Lowe at left tackle. Christian Kirk, depth piece there. Brett Toth, Robert Jones at guard. So there are pieces that got added here. Again, the draft, they have a habit of not having higher end picks, but DeJon Stribling at wide receiver, who we'll talk about. Romello Height, linebacker. Kalen Black, running back. Grace Halton at defensive tackle. Carver Willis at offensive tackle. Ephesians Prysock at cornerback. Jaden Duggar at linebacker. Enrique Cruz at tackle. So there are some additions here. You hope that the backfill can work. The drafting in this particular team has not been super fantastic. It kind of comes and goes, it feels like. So hopefully these guys can come in and kind of be big parts of the team. And again, a lot of it's because, frankly, the Trey Lance trade. And then last year, their first round pick got hurt after 2 games. So the drafting stuff is a bit skewed, but also there are some holes. So hopefully this new crop can come in and be a pretty big part of some of the good play that the 49ers will probably put out. But let's jump into the roster. We'll start at quarterback. Brock Purdy is that guy. And again, we have Mac Jones behind here. Brock Purdy is a really interesting case. Now, the way I grade offenses is I mix quarterback and offensive coordinator, or whoever calls the plays, this case Kyle Shanahan. Tend to mix that number together, so it kind of gets muddied. But in terms of Brock Purdy himself, if we were to pull him out of the system, he's an interesting player. Again, he does a lot of good things. He's relatively accurate with his throws in terms of accuracy, where he's throwing it to. The decision he's made. After he's made the decision, the throws tend to be relatively accurate. He's very efficient, again, in this system, finding the open guy, 4th-rated quarterback in PFF's system last year. Pressure to sack rate is really, really good. Best in the league last year in percentage. Though he gets a nice time to throw there with a really good offensive line. But he does make some, or he does have some negative traits. Again, he makes some bad decisions. Like, there's just a certain, like, it's an interesting way to put this. How do I want to put this? The decision making, a lot of the time, is really, really good. He finds the open guy, and then like you get 2 or 3 plays a game where it's like, what were you even thinking throwing that football? He has a couple, again, 2 or 3 times a game he gets a couple of those. Again, he played 9 games last year, 20 TDs, which is crazy. But also 10 interceptions in 9 games is not where you want to be. Only 12 big-time throws, 11 turnover-worthy plays. Not where you want to be. A.dot 26th in the league, so a little bit further down, so he's not throwing deep a ton. So he does do some nice things. He does make his fair share of mistakes along the way. So I don't have him in my top end of quarterbacks, and again, it doesn't really matter. He's just got to come into the Shanahan system and do what, just not make a ton of mistakes, and it'll be fine. There have been plenty of quarterbacks who haven't been very good come through this system. I believe Brock Purdy is the best one in a while. Again, I think he's better than Mac Jones. I think he's better than Jimmy G, Trey Lance for sure. He's been better than all those players coming in, and he's done a lot better with Kyle Shanahan than those guys did for the most part. But as a player, solo, pull him out of the system, put him anywhere else. He's my 18th best quarterback with all those negatives. And again, arm strength, his mobility is all right, not elite. And again, the decision making sometimes is just really, really bad, frankly, sometimes. So it's an interesting player, but again, not super relevant because all he has to do is kind of not be horrific, and he gives them a good base, and we get good play out of Brock Purdy a lot of the time. So again, this is, if we're grading it how I grade it, he's my 18th best quarterback. If we're grading how I grade it going into my NFL model stuff, he's like a top, him and Shanahan together are like a top 5 unit. So, um, again, really good in terms of what he's asked to do. Um, and that's what we're looking for. Again, it's it's awkward to kind of describe because I think like you see it on a list and you're like, man, 18th, whoa. And like, I think there are other quarterbacks who bring more things to the table. I just don't think Brock Purdy has to bring that stuff to the table, and all his negatives kind of get pushed away by the system most of the time, and not too many other players have that, you know, luxury. And it's not Brock Purdy's fault or anything like that, but um, grading him solo, you have to kind of take the system out of it a little bit, and we kind of look at it that way. So, again, a really good quarterback, offensive coordinator duo. Mac Jones is serviceable, and again, I think there's a lot of proof in the idea that Shanahan makes it quarterback friendly as he kind of goes on. Again, Mac Jones went 5-3 last year with this team. Um, Again, with missing like no Nick Bosa, no Fred Warner, a lot of guys missing time. Mac Jones went 5-3. Jimmy Garoppolo had a pretty successful career there. He got to a Super Bowl with Shanahan there, and I don't think there are too many people who think very highly of Jimmy Garoppolo. Um, so again, he's shown the ability here. I think Purdy's the best of the group, but I'm not sure how many quarterbacks I'm taking him over in a vacuum. Curtis Rourke, Adrian Martinez, way further down the line. If we're kind of there, we're in a little bit of trouble. But Mac Jones is a more than capable backup, and again, proved last year that he's more than capable of winning games. Let's get to the skill position groups. Wide receiver, we'll start here again. Mike Evans, they bring in, who's a Hall of Famer and continues to be very, very good. He gets out of Tampa Bay, comes over here. I'm interested to see what his future looks like here. He's getting a little bit older, but still very talented, can still go up and get it for sure. And Brock Purdy will probably have no problem finding him. Unfortunately, Ricky Pearsall, again, we mentioned, who I really like, is going to miss the season. It seems just to be like a funky blunder there, um, in terms of his knee and the advice they got or whatever it may be, and it just happened to be the wrong decision. And unfortunately, we're going to be missing Ricky Pearsall stuff, but Pearsall I really like. It's just unfortunately won't be there. So they bring back Debo Samuel. He's kind of lost a step, but in this system, you hope he can kind of get back to it a little bit. Christian Kirk comes in, who's solid depth. Dejon Stripling, who they drafted and I have high hopes for. We'll see what he looks like. Again, I'm not a talent scout, and I can't really walk you through what I expect out of Dejon Stribling, but hopefully he hits the ground running because they could do with an upgrade somewhere. Demarcus Robinson, I imagine, continues to get stuff. He was getting good work last year, and again, no Ricky Pearsall here. I don't see why he won't get good work this year. And then Jacob Coing, Jordan Watkins further down the line. But they got 5 guys here who can all do a job as long as they're healthy. So we'll see what that looks like there. It's a pretty decent room, but a step back with Ricky Pearsall not kind of being out there for all those snaps. Running back room. Christian McCaffrey, who's another all-timer. He was a bit... he. It's interesting to describe him because there aren't too many players in the league who can take this volume and be good with it. Like, this is fine. Like he wasn't like overperforming like he's used to being. It slowed down a little bit in some of the efficiency metrics and the metrics like that, breaking tackles and stuff. But he's gonna give you an entire season where as long as he's healthy, he's gonna every snap you give him, he's gonna give you 5 yards. Here, we'll take it. Um, on screens, on rushes, on everything. So you're not going to get negative performances out of McCaffrey. I don't know how many more positive, like over the top performances you're going to get out of McCaffrey in terms of efficiency over the top, breaking tackles, more yards over expected. I'm not sure how much you're going to get out of McCaffrey in those scenarios anymore to the positive. I don't think you're going to get negatives, but if 5 yards are there, you're going to get them. I just don't know how many times you're going to get 6, 7, 8 anymore. But you're going to get the 5, and you're going to get it in volume. And again, there aren't too many players in the league at running back who you give God knows how many touches to, and he's just going to be giving you what's there every single time. There just aren't too many players like that. So still very good, and expect him to have another pretty solid year. Jordan James, we'll see what that looks like a little bit. Okay, back up here. They draft Kalen Black. We'll see what he looks like. Again, when it comes to the prospects, I can't help you a ton. But third round, they like their running backs, continue to draft them, and hopefully he can do a job if called upon. Isaac Guerrero hurt right now, but was okay in some of the touches he was getting when McCaffrey was hurt last 2 years ago. So we'll see there. Tight end room, good unit. Again, health permitting. George Kittle right now is dealing with something, and it sounds like some of the phrasing is hopeful for week 1. That seems like, hey, we'll see. If he's ready to go week 1, that feels like a week 2 or 3 thing, but we'll see if he's ready to go week 1. Jake Tonjes was pretty good last year, again, in those George Kittle games missed. There's 6 of them, I think, so he can step in. I have no problem thinking he can step in. Luke Farrell, Braden Willis further down the chart. Okay depth, some decent blocking in there. We'll see. Don't want to get too far down this depth chart, but solid enough. All right, guys, here we are for the offensive line. Top 10 unit. It's got a few really nice pieces, particularly at tackle on both sides. Trent Williams continues to just defy age and be incredibly good. PFF's third rated offensive tackle, 20th best tackle in pass block win rate, 5th best tackle in run block win rate. He's been elite pretty much his entire career, continues to be so. The age is getting up there again, and we say this about a couple of players who continue to play at crazy levels, that the age is there. But I suppose until it falls off, this is just kind of who Trent is, and one day it will, and we'll be there when it does. But until it does, we're probably just going to ride with the level it is. We'll downgrade once it comes, but for now, another player with really elite play at that left tackle spot. Colton McKivitz on the other side, another solid tackle. Took a pretty big step last year. PFF had him as the 8th graded tackle, and their 4th graded tackle in pass blocking, which is nice. So the floor is there for a really good tackle tandem. Again, if Trent drops, he drops, but if he doesn't, we're looking at a really good set of tackles. Jake Brendel at center is pretty decent. 8th on PFF last year, 17th in pass block win rate for all interior linemen last year, which includes guards and centers, which is really nice. There's a good floor there. He may not, be an all-out elite center or anything like that, but a solid player to have there. Guard is where this gets a little bit funky. Robert Jones comes in. It looks like he'll start. He hasn't played particularly well at any stage so far in his career, so we'll see what that looks like. Missed all of last year as well, so not what we want to see there. Dominic Pooney will start on the other side. decent last year. There's been 2 years running of decent play, which is nice to see. Again, we kind of want multiple years of good play. Otherwise, 1 year of good play is a bit of a red flag until you see that second year. So, a couple good years now, solid player, younger, could take a step. So we'll see. But yeah, it's four, 2 really good pieces, 2 solid pieces, and a we'll see piece. So it's a pretty good unit. Depth is, young for the most part. Pair of rookies in there with Enrique Cruz, Carver Willis. Colby was, not super great last year, but could step in and do a job in small portions. So we'll see. I'm not in love with the depth or anything like that, and there's a lot of unknowns out there. But again, it's a top 10 unit when everybody on the top is healthy. So I expect the offense as a whole to just be good again. You have Kyle Shanahan, which gives it a really great base. Brock Purdy plays well in this system. You're looking at a really, again, good base, a really high floor. Tight end room, we'll see if when Kittle gets back, but when Kittle's healthy, he's a very, very good tight end. Tonjes is a pretty decent second as well. Running back, McCaffrey continues to be a workhorse. Wide receiver, there's some injuries in there, but you get some good players as well. Mike Evans, hopefully Dejon Stribling takes a step in there. Demarcus Robinson's been okay since he's been playing. Again, Christian Kirk's decent-ish depth, so we'll see there. But all in all, this should be a really, really solid room, or really, really solid offense. And there's no reason why this offense is not going to be top 10 most likely. So a good unit. Defense, this is going to be the problem unit most likely. Again, bottom 7 in EPA against last year. That needs to go up in terms of like a ceiling. Like again, they were like 25th last year. In terms of getting deep in the playoffs, you need something better than that. And again, it showed last year. Seahawks put up 41 in that game, a variety of different ways and stuff. But it doesn't matter how good your offense is if the defense is just a sieve. And you can ask the Bengals fans all about that and Cowboys fans all about that. So this unit needs to improve, and hopefully it does. Again, they're getting a lot of injury pieces back. So why don't we go ahead through the group. The defensive line we'll start with. Again, some good pieces here. Coming back off injury, obviously, Nick Bosa, who's an elite rusher, been elite his whole career. He's coming off a pretty major injury. And again, ACL tears for edges that are really good is a little bit awkward. You do a lot of bending and a lot of getting low to the ground. So that injury could be a little bit funky as we go. He is dealing with some tendonitis in that knee from what it looks like. So it's a bit of a worry going into the season. We'll see if that materializes into something difficult for him. But fully healthy, he's a really, really great player on the edge. So it's nice to have him back in some capacity at least. Michael Williams, another one coming off an ACL. First round draft pick last year, only played like 100 snaps or so. We don't really know anything about what Michael Williams is going to be, what he can be, what he will be. It's just a bitty, just like all the rookies we have that we speak about in all these videos, is just an unknown. The draft pedigree's there, obviously, being drafted, I think it was 11th. The draft pedigree's there. We'll see what it ends up looking like as we go into the season, but a bit of an unknown there. On the other side, depth at edge is, okay. Keon White is a solid depth piece, nothing spectacular. Did take a bit of a step back last year, but has been useful in spots. So we'll see what it looks like. He won't have to be that guy here. He can just come off the bench if, in a couple snaps here and there. So we'll see. Romello Height, the rookie, comes in. We'll see if he can contribute to this unit. Again, another rookie, which I can't give you a ton on, but we'll see. I'm going to mess this name up here. Nonu, I believe. Nonu. Wasn't super great last year, but has played at that spot before, a bit of depth, been around a little bit. So, um, again, if Romello Height is decent and can be useful, if Nick Bosa is healthy, if Michael Williams just kind of comes in and hits the ground running off of his injury there, we're looking at a pretty decent edge group for sure. But also there's some scope for down, some pretty aggressive scope for down there. If Nick Bosa's tendonitis just lingers and he's not healthy, and Michael Williams is a little bit busty, anything like that, and all of a sudden this room is a bit of an issue. Interior, workable here. I really like the addition of Odigizua here. He's been playing really well for 4 or 5 years now, which is obviously an excellent sign and should give you a really nice base. Good pass rusher from the middle is always great to have. Again, interior pressure is so important in this league, and he gives you a pretty decent chunk. Collins looks like he's going to be starting with him. He was really bad last year, and PFF had him rated 124th on the interior defensive line. Run defense was really bad. The guy behind him, CJ West, was also tied at 124th on PFF, which is pretty funky. There were only 127, I think it was, interior defensive linemen that got ranked here. Yeah, 127, and they're both sitting on 124. So not ideal there. But again, the run defense stuff is really not good. And you're going to have to try and find the hot hand at defensive tackle. Excuse my cat. You're going to have to find the hot hand there to go along with Odigizua. And God forbid he gets hurt, then the interior here could be a bit of an issue. Grace Halton comes in from the draft. We'll see if he can. Again, there's some bad players in this unit. We'll see if he can push forward and, work some snaps in. But outside of Odigizua, it's a pretty bad unit. All the bright spots are, the bright spot is Odigizua and hopefully the rookie. So we'll see there. All in all, the defensive line's in a weird place because, again, there's some good players here. Nick Bosa is a really, really fantastic player. Odigizua is a really solid player. You have early round draft picks with Michael Williams. The problem is 2 of those dudes are coming off ACLs. One of them's dealing with tendonitis off the ACL, the really good one, and the other one might just be left alone in the middle with no real help on the interior. So there could be some issues on this front, but again, there's some good players there, and hopefully they're all just healthy and hitting the ground running. Linebacker room. This is probably just the best unit. They're the best linebacking unit in the league. I think Fred Warner is pretty comfortably the best linebacker in the game. Has been for a bit. Missed a chunk of last season with a broken ankle, but should be fine. That's not one of those injuries that lingers into the new year, so hopefully that should be fine. And again, this should be he's the best linebacker in the league. Last year, PFF had him as the best linebacker in coverage and the 4th best linebacker in run stop, which is pretty nuts for him. And linebackers in a weird position in the league right now where there aren't too many good ones just in general. To have the best one by a comfortable margin is a pretty nice piece to have. And then next to him, they add Dre Greenlaw, who's another really good linebacker. Has had a really great career so far. Coverage was, right about average last year, but the run stuff was excellent. So it'll be pretty difficult for running backs to get through the middle and into the secondary this year. Hopefully, again, maybe the coverage goes up, but you're looking at the best linebacker in the league paired with like a top 15 linebacker. So this is definitely the best room, the best linebacker room in the league. It's really, really fantastic. Don't love the depth here, but this is kind of the cost of things. Gifford hasn't really been particularly good. Bethune, okay run defender, but can't really cover or do much of anything else. Jaden Duggar via the draft, so we'll see if he can work his way up the depth chart a little bit. But again, you're looking at the best linebacker room in the league. Just hope they stay healthy. Secondary. This is the problem unit on the team, pretty much. Or not pretty much. This is pretty straightforward. The worst unit on the team. It's it was bad last year. It's probably going to be bad this year. There's not a single player in the entire unit who graded above 52nd by PFF last year. Lenore is probably the best corner in terms of coverage. It's not great still. A pretty bad run defender as well. Upton Stout. He was the highest graded player in this room last year. His blitzing stuff is really efficient, but again, below average coverage, and that's pretty much everybody in this unit is below average coverage. Renardo Green was just straight up bad last year for the most part. First year was okay, but did not have a good year last year, so hopefully maybe he can find that form again and step back up going into this year. Bring in Nate Hobbs, Jack Jones are there. They're both whatever in coverage. Jack Jones is really good in the run stuff and the blitz stuff, so at least he's good at that stuff. But again, the coverage across the whole unit is really not very good. The depth, again, Jack Jones, Nate Hobbs, they're not fantastic players or anything, but the starters aren't particularly fantastic players, and that means that if someone were to get hurt, the depth pieces come in, you probably won't see a huge dip, which is good. But again, we're talking a bottom 5 or 6 unit here, so in the league, so not good. Rookie comes in, Ephesians Prysock, with a hell of a name there, middle round rookie. So we'll see what that looks like. And then we got safety. Yeah, the corner room. It's weird. It's like 6 players that are all the same level of not very good. Mustafa and Brown come in as safeties. They're not horrible, but like they're not good. Again, both in the 50s on PFF, and safety on PFF's a little bit funky in terms of just grading because teams just ask safeties to do a variety of different things, so it's tough to kind of grade them all together. But none of them played particularly well last year anyway. Both solid in run defense. Coverage, again, stop me if I'm a broken record, not good here in this group. Neal and Sigel, not great depth, and when you don't have good players on the top, you're probably not getting good depth, which, there we go. Sigel on PFF was their worst graded safety last year, period, which is not good. And overall, this secondary is probably going to be just really bad. And that's just probably where we're at. And you hope you can find the hot hand somewhere, maybe in coverage for a little bit or something like that. But overall, this on paper at least, this is it's a not so good unit in terms of just regular old coverage. So at least they have some good linebackers in front of them that could help there, but it's a bad unit. And in terms of how that works on a whole defense, when you have a bad secondary, it doesn't really matter how good the coverage, or it doesn't matter how good the pass rush is, because guys are open right away, and you could be getting to the quarterback in like a second and a half every single time, and the ball's gone. So it's a potential problem. And again, the secondary being a big problem is obviously a big problem, but like there are pretty aggressive potential landmines here. Again, Michael Williams, if he doesn't work out, it's just an empty spot on the D line. If Bosa's knee just continues to be a problem, that's pretty gigantic. So if Bosa misses time here and Michael Williams is like just an average guy off the bat, where is the positive outside of linebacker, which is like the least important position there outside of safety on the defense? Like, that's kind of where we're at with the defense. It's a worry, and I'm not so sure that this defense got too much better. Again, I really like the addition of Dodijizua in there, and again, there are players I really like, but in terms of in terms of this defense being like an average unit, which it probably needs to get to for this team to have like a genuine shot at a Super Bowl, if that's the goal, it's tough for me to see it get there. So we need steps up, we need good health, and that's what the goal. You got to push toward that average mark. As for the schedule, interesting one. The start is interesting that you only get I believe your bye week is relatively early in the 8th week. But your first game is that one in Australia against the Rams, um, which is a bit annoying. No, it's an away game at least. But it is annoying. You got to go all the way out to Australia there. Then you come back and you play 3 home games in a row, which is nice. Miami at home, Arizona at home. Those should be wins. That Miami one's an awkward spot because of the travel and all that stuff before. But Miami should be a win. Arizona should be a win. Then you get Denver at home and at Seattle. Again, this team is not going to go into any game and be like and get their ass kicked. I'm pretty sure. I think you can contend with all these teams up there. So when it's not like like there are a lot of teams, in this league where you're like at Seattle, you're probably losing that. I'm not sure San Francisco falls into that, but it's not an easy game, obviously. Washington at home, at Atlanta, Vegas at home right after the bye. You're hoping to go 3-0 in that stretch. At Dallas, then Minnesota overseas again. I believe this is outside of Jacksonville, the other team that's got two games overseas, which would be annoying. Would be annoying as a Giants fan to happen to the Giants, but is annoying here because you go to Dallas and then you go overseas and then you come home and play a really tough game against Seattle. That's not fun. Then you get the Giants away from home. Rams. I gotta move this over because I can't just see it. At Giants, Rams at home, at Chargers, at Chiefs, Eagles at home, and then you end at Arizona. So it's a really, really tough stretch there. Again, 3 road games in 4. And then the Eagles and the Rams are the 2 home games. So it's a pretty awkward spot. But we do have a bet for this team here. And it's Brock Purdy. And again, we spoke about Brock Purdy again last year. In his 10 games, he went for 20 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. We have got the touchdown marker again here. Brock Purdy over 27.5 touchdown passes at -110. A $7.27 bet for us in our challenge. I love the offense. Again, it's tough to look at this offense and not see a top 10 offense. It's probably just going to be really good again. As long as Brock Purdy's healthy, I think he could get this number pretty comfortably. Again, last year he was on track for 34. And the defense being the way it is means that they're going to have to score points a lot. And even, again, you either get a game where you have to score points a lot. You play all these difficult games where you're playing the Rams and the Seahawks and, Dallas and away from home and, Chargers, Chiefs. Like, you're going to have to score points in these games. You're just going to have to keep coming back. You're going to have to be thrown. You're probably going to be behind a lot deep in games and stuff like that. And then when you're playing Miami and Arizona, who have horrific secondaries, and Washington and the Giants, who are the lower end teams that you should beat, you're looking at a lot of bad secondaries. So I think Brock Purdy could be once again in line for a lot of touchdowns this year. If you believe in the high end of this team, like you think this team can win the division, Brock Purdy MVP stuff is definitely not off the table. But that's what we like, his over touchdown passes. So there we go. So yeah, last cut, obviously right before the end here, but there we go. San Francisco 49ers, really interesting year ahead.